Did you know there are over 40 different types of melons out there? Today, we're gonna be going over some of the most common, rare, and absolutely delicious melons. I'll be showing you how to identify, slice, and prepare all different types of melons that you might encounter. First, let's talk about the families. All melons belong to the cucurbit family. Gourds and cucumbers are also part of this same family. The family then splits into two genera, Citrullus and Cucumis, which are the two that we're going to be talking about today. The Citrullus genera includes fruit that has seeds spread throughout, like the watermelon. The Cucumis genera has a central seed cavity, like cantaloupes, honeydew, and are actually more closely related to cucumbers than they are to watermelon. Melons in the Cucumis family are also referred to as musk melons because of their sweet flavor and earthy aroma. So let's start with one of the most common melons that you will see. Cantaloupe, the gateway melon. Your average cantaloupe is a beige, light orange color with a netted exterior. You can tell that cantaloupes are ripe when they have a tiny bit of give. It should be firm, not soft, but it should have a little bit of tenderness to it. When cantaloupes ripen naturally, the stem detaches, so you want to look for one that has an indented stem end. Another way you can tell if it's ripe is by smelling it. Go towards the stem end, and it should have a slightly sweet, pungent aroma. Once you cut it open, you're gonna wanna scoop out the seeds. I put it flat side down. Always give yourself a stable surface. Cut it in half again, and then just cut it into nice slices. Very juicy, really high water content, but not a really high sugar content, which is great. Very well balanced, and the texture is dense and meaty almost. Reminiscent of like you just licked a spoon of honey a couple minutes ago and it's like coming back. Cantaloupe is great to puree and use for things like sorbet or granita. Granita is very easy to make. You essentially just melt some sugar in water, add your puree, pop it in the freezer, and then use a fork to fluff it up every hour or so, scraping and making these beautiful little fluffy crystals. A fun garnish for something like this is using a melon baller to make pretty little balls. Ballin'. I also like to top this with a little bit of black pepper. It adds a little contrast, a little warmth, and a really great depth of flavor. It's just the perfect summer snack. The Tuscan Cantaloupe, also known as the Italian Stallion. As you can tell by the name, these came from Italy. The ribs will be much more indented and have a deeper color. The flesh itself under the netting is more of a golden, light green kind of hue. These lines will start off a solid dark green, and as it ripens, they'll kind of break up and get more of the netting and golden hue on it, and they won't be as solid like you see here. So the color is a little deeper orange than the cantaloupe. It smells a little less musky, like an orange blossom kind of smell. So I cut this one lengthwise because I want to get longer wedges because these are just going to be so good eaten on their own as is. And then I'm just cutting this into little segments so you can just grab your little piece of cantaloupe. Now that is delicious. It is definitely sweeter than the regular cantaloupe. It's so luscious. It's got a similar water content, but it just really coats your mouth so the flavor lingers a little longer. And it just smells like more floral and blossomy. So it is really, really pleasant. Honeydew. Also known as the honey, do not forget to pick one up from the store. Honeydews can range in color from pale green to white, yellow, and light orange. The honeydew is characterized by a smoother rind, and it doesn't have as much of the musky aromas as some of the cantaloupe and other members of the Cucumis family. You see like mild striations from the stem end to the blossom end, but not as deep. To find a ripe honeydew, you should look for one that has a waxy rind, is heavy for its size, and gives a little bit but bounces back. I love doing that. Similar to the cantaloupe, the seeds are all located in the center channel, but they're like encased in 3 separate pods. These seeds you could even roast, salt them, and eat them as a snack. Wow, that is delicious. Good pick on the melon. Looking at the green color, you think that it would have a less sweet vegetal flavor. It almost has notes of cucumber and that kind of cooling flavor, but it's overridingly much sweeter, really tender, and super juicy. Honeydew is one of the sweeter varieties of melon, hence the name. The flavors in this make it absolutely perfect to use for a beverage. So here we have a honeydew spritzer, which is puree of honeydew, cucumber, and a little lime juice, just strained out to get the pulp. Now, this would be really good with a splash of gin or spirit of your choice. If you want to make it a cocktail, feel free. Oh my God, I could drink this like every day. I want to be next to a pool right now. Canary Melon, big bird. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Can you tell me? The Canary Melon is actually named after canary birds because the rind matches that bright yellow color of the feathers. It has no netting. It kind of looks like a really big etrog or citrus because it has that same color and points at both ends. Go long. The Canary Melon has notes of pineapple and banana in the aromas. As the Canary Melon ripens, the flesh is actually gonna become waxier and the color inside is gonna deepen. Leave it to Cleaver. That's hard. The flesh looks very bright. It's got very subtle green color and the seeds themselves look like really big sunflower seeds. The Canary Melon also has a longer shelf life post-vine because of this harder waxy rind. It smells a little bit like the essence of honey or honey blossom. Oh, wow. That's exciting. The texture on this is super tender and supple. It's got like a depth of flavor and almost an umami-ness to it. It tastes like it's like been bathed in coconut water. The texture of this is unlike any of the other melons. Ooh, closer to the rind, I'm getting a tiny bit of tartness on the end, almost like citrusy or passion fruit notes. This melon is so unique in terms of texture and flavor, I would recommend just eating it on its own. The Galia Melon, or as I'm calling it, the Smellin' Melon. Oh, smells so good. This melon tends to be on the smaller size compared to other members of the family. It ranges from about 2 to 3 pounds. It's more round. Under the netting, it's more of a golden yellowish hue. And the netting is a little thinner, so the fibers aren't sticking out as much from the rind. The rind itself will turn from green to golden when it's ripe. Oh, I did not expect that color. Looking at the outside, you might think that it's gonna have an orange hue inside, but it is an actually pale green melon. It's got that kind of subtle, mellow flavor with notes of cucumber and kind of vegetalness like the honeydew had, but it has a little more lusciousness to it, kind of like the cantaloupe. Would be really fun to pickle, which is what we have today. So this is true essence of summer. Here we have some beautiful ripe heirloom tomatoes and some of the Galia melon that has just had the rind cut off and been pickled. The quick pickle gives it a little bit more acidity, which balances out with the creaminess of a burrata. Pickling is usually done in a solution with vinegar, salt, sugar, and water, and it preserves things, but it can also help enhance the flavor really, really nicely. The Galia melon, also known as the snow leopard melon. This is a newer hybrid melon. You can identify it by the small oblong shape, the white firm flesh, it's got a smooth rind, no netting, and it's got spots and stripes that range in color from yellow to green. As you can see, the flesh is bright white, very dense, kind of spongy, but very like close, tight knit. The flavor is really mild and pretty subtle. It's got notes of cucumber, underripe pear, with a softer, luscious texture, but a little bit of honey on the back end, less sweet than the other melons. So anybody who's familiar with tahine knows that it's good on pretty much everything, but it's especially good on this type of melon because the flavor is very subtle. It's firmer, it's got more of the green vegetal flavor than the sweetness of some melons. The melon is pretty much like a vessel for the tahine. but it cools it down. It has that high water content, so it pushes all that flavor around your mouth and a little bit of sweetness to the spice. Zerbinati Sun Sweet Melon. I'm calling this the Ferrari of melons because this little guy costs $40 and it comes with a handy booklet. A reading from the Book of Zerbinati, where the clay soil withholds moisture from the plants, exerting vital stress. Kind of like wine, interesting. Given minimal water, the plants are forced to grow slowly. This means that sugars are undiluted, flesh is firm, and saturated in juice. This is a smaller varietal. It's almost like a big softball. It has some striations from the stem end to the blossom end, but they're not very deep. It's got a soft spot on the bottom, which lets me know that it ripened coming from the stem, sitting on the ground in the sun, and that spot has a little bit of give to it, and it smells pretty aromatic, so I think this is gonna be a ripe one. The color here looks very concentrated. It's a really even orangish golden color. It smells like cantaloupe heaven. Like, look at that deep green color at the rind. Oh, wow. That is a really concentrated flavor. It's super juicy. The flesh is definitely denser. It's got more of that kind of spongy texture, like packed in. It's almost buttery in a subtle way of how it coats your mouth, but then it cleans out with all that back end flavor. It's got a little bit of vegetal note at the end, but a really rich floral kind of sweetness to it. So we've all heard the term, what grows together goes together, and this is no exception. Here is some prosciutto di Parma. These two items come from the same region, 50 miles apart, and they complement each other perfectly in terms of flavor and texture. The saltiness really hits your mouth, and then you get that rush of juice and sweetness from the melon, and it's like the perfect combination. These are really good neighbors. Hami Melon, or as I like to call it, the mellow yellow. The color of this melon is a little brighter and more vibrant yellow color. It's very golden. The Hami Melon is among one of the larger varietals of melon. It's oblong in shape. The netting on here is much more subtle. This looks almost more like a crackle in the rind. One way to tell when this one is ripe is weight. Like all melons, it should have no green remaining on the melon, and you should have a little perfumey smell coming from the stem. So the color is a more subtle orange. It's not as vibrant and bright as some of the others. It's got a thicker white rim around the rind, a very subtle, almost Asian pear, crisp kind of smell to it. The texture on this is different from most melons in that it's a little bit crisper. It has a little bit of a crunch to it, almost like it's going into watermelon territory. It's kind of like a melon crossed with a jicama. The flavor is very mild and subtle, but a little more aromatic in kind of a blossomy perfume way, but less sweet. You could swap this melon in for pretty much all of the preparations that we've done so far, but because of its crisp, watery texture, I would like to just eat this chilled on its own. Crenshaw Melon. I'm gonna call it the big fig because it looks like a big fig. The shape is flat on the bottom and kind of like an acorn where it tapers and comes to a point at the stem end. It's also quite large. These can grow anywhere between 8 to 10 pounds. When the Crenshaw melon is ripe, you'll know because it'll give a little bit when you press near the stem end. It's got a pale orange, almost peachy flesh, and you see the distinct seed pods again on the inside, separated by fiber, but this time we see 4. The Crenshaw melon also has a really thick outer rind here, and because of that hard rind, it's also gonna have a longer shelf life than most melons. Ooh, that is almost a chewy, gummy texture in a way, like fruit snacks, where you chew, but when you bite on it, your teeth eventually go through. It's on the sweeter side, still has a lot of cucumber aroma and flavor, so it's almost like you just sprinkled a tiny pinch of sugar on a cucumber. When ripe, the Crenshaw melon has a really high sugar content, which makes it perfect to introduce to a heat source. Here we have grilled Crenshaw melon. This has some chili flakes and olive oil drizzled on top. The sugars in there will caramelize and create a depth of flavor and another layer of taste. This is super satisfying. It's the contrast of the sweet flavors, the cool cucumber notes, a little heat from the chili, and you get all that depth from the caramelization of the sugars in the melon. Yum. I want one more bite. The Korean melon, which I'm gonna call the delicata doppelganger. If you've ever seen a delicata squash, it pretty much looks exactly like this. Sorry. The Korean melon has a really thin rind or skin, so it's completely edible. From the seeds to the rind, you can eat it all. It also has a much stronger smell. This melon is small but mighty. It can withstand droughts, so it's really easy to grow. The flesh is a bright white color, and that aroma just gets even stronger as soon as you cut it. The seeds actually look more like cucumber seeds, and they have kind of an aqueous membrane around them. The texture of this has a hard crisp. The flesh itself is sweet and aromatic, and the skin, when I tried just a piece of that, does have a little bit of a bitterness, but when eaten with the flesh, it balances out nicely. Because this has such an interesting, delicate texture, flavors, and aroma, this is best suited to just have chilled with very simple preparations so the fruit itself can come through. Christmas melon, or the toadskin melon. Although this melon is harvested around the end of summer to early fall, it has a longer shelf life that can last for about 2 months, so this can still be on the store shelves during the holiday season, hence the festive name. The flesh itself looks very cucumbery, like pale green, whitish in color. In spite of the look, it's not as crisp as a cucumber. It has a lot of similar notes and flavor where it's very clean. It doesn't coat your palate for very long. It just clears right up. It has a tender, spongy, soft texture, but a very subtle sweetness that goes away and finishes on more mineral notes. In the vein of what grows together goes together, I would pair this melon with some salted, roasted Marcona almonds. Very simple. Between sips of wine or a cocktail, these would be the perfect complement to one another to provide that salty crunchiness along with that cool mineral refreshing with subtle sweetness here. Here we have watermelon. I'm gonna call these, what are you doing with your life if you don't know what these are? Melon. Watermelons vary in size and appearance based on the specific type, but they tend to be pretty oblong in shape or ovular, and they tend to have a smooth rind with dark green and light green stripes. When selecting a watermelon, a good way to tell if it's ripe or not is to look for the spot on the bottom. They should be heavy for their size. And the reason it's called watermelon is because these are actually comprised of 92% water. Oh my God. It's got a light structure that kind of compresses and condenses when you eat it. So it gives a light crispness, but it's so juicy and so sweet and very, very refreshing. So here we have the 3 types of watermelon: seeded, seedless, and mini, also known as the icebox. Even though this is called seedless, you still see these little white things in here, which are technically just the coatings of seeds, so they're perfectly safe to eat. Watermelon is great on its own, or it can be paired with white balsamic vinegar, feta cheese. It can be grilled or pureed to make delicious beverages. But a lot of people don't know that the rind is edible too. It's best peeled on the outer layer with a peeler, and then you can pickle it or preserve. You're gonna boil your watermelon rinds just for a little bit to help them soften, and then you can keep them in these jars with the pickling solution for up to 3 months. You still get some of the softer part in the red flesh, but the rind itself is crunchy and soft like an amazing pickle. Watermelon is pretty much the gift that keeps giving. Yellow watermelon, the true OG. Surprisingly, yellow watermelons were cultivated first. It wasn't until they became popular and were bred to have lycopene that the red watermelon actually became a thing. Judging by this big spot on the bottom, I have a feeling that this is going to be pretty ripe. The inside is bright yellow. There are parts next to the spot where it sat on the ground that are a little overripe, but the color is absolutely beautiful. Even though this was the original watermelon, it's not as common to see nowadays, so this is a special treat. It has a lot of subtle notes, still a little bit of that kind of cool cucumber flavor, mineral notes on the very, very back end, but overall, it's very similar to eating a red watermelon. It doesn't have as much of the depth of flavor that you find there, but it does have a lot of character, more of the kind of sweet minerally character that we found in cucumber. So just like red watermelon, this would pair well with a salty cheese or a little bit of herbs, just something to kind of enhance the flavor. So here we just have a beautiful but simple salad with feta cheese, yellow watermelon, a little bit of mint, basil, and some crushed chili. So this is like a perfect combination of texture and flavor. And then the herbs just really complement and give it some of that earthy, beautiful flavor that brings everything together. So that was all the melons we could possibly gather in one place. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot and are able to try some of the delicious preparations that we made here today. Feel free to leave a comment and let us know what you want to see here next time on The Big Guide. I'm Adrienne Cheatham, and I hope to see you soon.